Welcome back to the channel, you guys. As you know, I have been gone for a few weeks, but I am back now. September beat me down. September had me down in the ground. I had my face in the mud, but we are now in October, and that's all that matters. I have come through the fire. I have come through the storm. I have gone over the mountain to the other side, and I'm doing better now. So, I'm going to give you more videos as I intended to, get back in focus and do what I love, talking about film with y'all. Okay, so today, what film are we going to be talking about? Well, we're going to be talking about weapons. Ooh, weapons. We're going to be talking about weapons. We're going to be talking about weapons. So yes, Weapons. Weapons is a film produced by Warner Brothers Entertainment. It is directed and written by none other than himself, Mr. Zach Cregger. Now, Zach Cregger, where did I come into contact with Zach Cregger first? It wasn't Weapons, but it also wasn't the beginning of Zach Cregger's career in Hollywood, right? I'd never watched all of that early stuff Zach Cregger did. Like, I was never into that type of comedy that he used to do in the early 2000s, late 2000s, early 2010s. That just wasn't the type of comedy I was into. So I never watched like his early little comedic stuff. But back in 2022, he did come out with his first feature film, which was Barbarian, right? And during the fall of like 2022, I remember hearing about Barbarian. I was hearing about Barbarian a lot. I was reading reviews about Barbarian. I was listening to a lot of podcasts about Barbarian, but I'm not like the biggest horror fan. So at the time I was like, I don't need to go see that, right? And I was also I had just finished up college. So I was like, in a different headspace and all that stuff. But then eventually one day I was with my friends and I went over to my friend's house and we're all like, we should watch a movie. Like, it's overcast day, it's fall, it's chilly. We all are cozy right now. Let's watch a movie. And like, we're like, let's watch Barbarian. Like, they say it's good. So we turned on Barbarian and we loved it. Like, we really loved Barbarian. It was a good experience. So let's just go into like what Barbarian is, right? So Barbarian is a film starring Georgina Campbell, Bill Skarsgård, and Justin Long. Basically, it follows Georgina Campbell's character, who is like a young woman, probably like late 20s, early 30s, and she gets a prospective job interview out in Detroit, right? She doesn't live in Detroit, so she's to fly out to Detroit. She flies out to Detroit for this interview. The night before the interview is when she flies out to Detroit, but she gets an Airbnb on the outer skirts of Detroit, right? And as you know, like, the outer skirts of Detroit are known or spoken to be like abandoned, like, or downtrodden or whatever, right? And so she gets an Airbnb on the outskirts of Detroit. She lands late at night. She Ubers to the outskirts of Detroit where her Airbnb is. That's not really a good thing to do, especially as a woman, right, in any city. And it's raining and it's dark. She can't see the neighborhood she's in, but she can see the house she's in. She sees the lights are on. So the Uber drops her off there. She gets out. She goes up to the door. The lock key, there's no key inside. So she's like, oh my gosh, like, what's going on? There's no key inside. How do I get inside? She's like trying to call the people. She's like, everything. Then she sees that there's somebody inside the house, and then like there's somebody staying at the house, and that's Bill Skarsgård's character. And they notice that like they double booked the Airbnb. Oh no, they double booked the Airbnb. Oh my gosh, this is so awkward. And so she's like, okay, I'm just gonna go. Like, I'm just gonna get a hotel in the city, XYZ. He's like, no. You come in, it's pouring, raining. You don't really have service, XYZ. Nobody's gonna come back out here tonight. It's like middle of the night. You can sleep in the bedroom. I will stay in the living room. We're gonna be fine, right? Unbeknownst to them, the Airbnb that they're staying at is above an evil lair with very horrific things occurring within it, right? And holding very horrific entities. And then you see how like that unfolds, right? Which I loved the film Barbarian. I was very intrigued by Barbarian. I thought it was shot very well. I thought the acting was great. I thought the story was very alluring. It was a newfound story at the time. Not saying that like stories about like, crazy stuff happening in houses are like generally new to horror and suspense or like psychological horror and thrillers, but that story in itself was very unique for that type of storytelling. And so I had a blast with it, honestly, up until like the last 20 minutes. The last 20 minutes of Barbarian kind of like, got a little too like unserious for me. And I know unserious is not a good way to describe film, but it was just got very like, I couldn't suspend my disbelief enough for the last 20 minutes of Barbarian. So it kind of lost me there, but like, 90% of the film, loved. So, sat well with me. Just had a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. Just like Weapons, right? Weapons stars Julia Gardner, Josh Brolin, Carrie Christopher, Benedict Wong, Alden Ehrenreich. I can't really say his name right anytime I try to. Austin Abrams, and Amy Madigan, right? And so Weapons follows the story of like a small city, I would say, and basically an entire classroom of elementary school children, probably like 8 or 9 years old, end up going missing one night, and it follows how that unravels about 6 characters within this town, but everybody in the town essentially, right? So this film is broken up into 6 chapters, right? So we have our first chapter, which is starring our protagonist, Miss Justine Gandy, played by Julia Gardner, who is the teacher over the children of the missing classroom. Then we have the second chapter, which follows Archer, who is played by Josh Brolin, who is a father of one of the children who are missing. Then we have the third chapter, which follows Paul, who is played by Alden Ehrenreich, who is a police officer within the town. And then we have the fourth chapter, which follows James, who is a local addict in the town, played by Austin Abrams. And then the fifth chapter we have is with Benedict Wong's character, who plays Marcus, who is the principal of the school where the children went missing at. And then the final chapter is for Alex, who is the remaining student who did not go missing from the classroom, played by Carrie Christopher. Right. And so we follow the story and we see like where the mystery unfolds and like where the children are. That's like what we follow throughout the whole chapter sequence of this film, is like, where are the kids? Who knows where the kids have gone, right? So overall thoughts on this film. I thought this film was a very new concept. I think this film is a very new concept, just like Barbarian. I think Zach Cregger does really well at taking like very kind of established type of storytelling for horror. Like, with Barbarian, it's like, scary house and evil stuff going on under the house. With Weapons, it's, kids missing, a child is missing. But here it's like kind of done differently, just as with Barbarian, where with Weapons, you don't get a lot of storytelling where, just like 30 children have gone missing. And like, you don't know what's happened to them. Like, you're trying to figure out what has happened to 30 children who are missing and nobody can tell what has happened to them. That's not a common storytelling. When I try to think of like stories that kind of do that storytelling, the only thing that comes to mind is like The Leftovers from HBO. I don't know if any of you have watched The Leftovers. You should go watch The Leftovers. I think it's like 3 or 4 seasons, but it's really, really, really good storytelling. It stars Justin Theroux and Carrie Coon. And basically what happens is like a small population of the earth, or like America, goes missing. And it's just about like how the society that we follow unravels from that occurrence, right? And so that's very similar to Weapons. And I found that show very appealing, just how I found Weapons very appealing conceptually, right? Because it's not a common story, and that's why it's luring. I think that, everything about this film is luring. I think the trailers were very luring. And so speaking of the trailers, another thing that I found overall that was very great about this film was the high visual quality of the film. There's a lot of aspects of the visual quality of this film. Who is the cinematographer of this film? Hold on one second. Let me find the cinematographer of this film. Okay, Larkin Seipel. Larkin Seipel is the cinematographer of this film. And I think Larkin Seipel did a great job with Zach Cregger in regards to the visual aspects of this film, because it's executed on such a high level, right? And there's a few things in regards to that I want to point out. So it's like the darkness of this film. This film is very dark. This film dwells in very cool color schemes. There's a lot of grays, there's a lot of greens, there's a lot of blues, there's a lot of browns, right? And it's very dark, but like you never feel like you can't see anything in this film. And I think that's like really, really great. And no, I'm not trying to be like those people who like complain about darkness on their television screen or darkness in a film and they can't see what's happening all day. Not the people like, oh my God, I couldn't enjoy the season finale of Game of Thrones. I couldn't enjoy the season finale of Game of Thrones because my TV was so dark. Oh my God. No, I'm not like one of those people. If something's dark, something's just dark, okay? I'm just not going to be able to see it if I'm not going to be able to see it, and I'm just going to take it as that's what they wanted from me, okay? I'll put 2 and 2 together later on. But with this film, everything's dark, and you can see everything, so I think that's perfect. All the grays are very gray. All the greens are very vibrant and green. All the blues are very vibrant and blue. All the blacks are very dark and like vibrant, but like you can see through them. All the browns are very strong. All the oranges are very strong. There's not a lot of pinks. There's not a lot of yellows and not a lot of like bright reds or anything like that. So I really liked it. And I'm an overcast guy. I love overcast weather. I don't know about y'all. I love overcast weather. Gray is my favorite color. So watching films like this kind of like just like warms my heart in a way. It like sits me in an environment that like I like to exist within. I know not a lot of people like overcast weather, but I do. So I was highly satisfied with the visual aspects of this film. Another thing about the visual aspects of this film, the camera perspectives. There's a lot of different camera perspectives in this film, and I thought they were really great. It was a lot of like in your face, but also like a lot of like far off from something. A lot of the times in this film, you'll run up into someone's face, like you'll run up into someone's face, right? But a lot of the times it's like you're on the opposite end of the room, or you're on the opposite end of the street, or you're on the opposite end of, you know, the area, and you're just watching things occur, or you're watching things come closer to you. And I thought that was really, really such a nice touch to the visual aspects of this film. And then there's a lot of negative space. Speaking of what I just said, there's a lot of negative space. Like you're so far away from certain stuff that like the spaces that you're dwelling in visually are very like hollow to a certain extent. It's not cluttered. The only clutteredness in this film is literally like the scene with James where he like breaks into Alex's home and he goes into the room where all of Alex's furniture is like stuffed up. But even then, we're in there for like, what, 2 seconds? So then every other scene, it's just like wide, vast space. And I love that because it makes you feel like there's like so much to look around at. And I think the camera does do that a lot. Like the camera kind of try to make you like look around like what potentially could be going on in here. And then that's kind of like how like the jump scares kind of work in this film, but we'll get into that. I think this film is also like successfully suspenseful. There's a lot of suspense in this film, and I think like suspense is like a key element to psychological horror. I think you could fall flat in a psychological horror film. You can fall flat on the gore, you can fall flat on the jump scares, but what you can't fall flat on is the suspense, because a part of it, like suspense, is what like causes the psychological, the mental turmoil of watching a horror film, right? I mean, like also like gore does as well, like, and so do jump scares, but in different ways. Gore is like very visceral. It's very like shocking. You don't see stuff like that on the regular, so it's very like jarring, right? It's like, ugh, like, oh, I don't want to see that. And then jump scares are very like flashy, so it's like things that like happen too quick for you to even like understand. So it's very shocking. But I think suspense is very luring. Suspense makes you want to keep watching the film you're watching, and you don't want to watch it. A lot of people watch stuff you don't want to be scared. Now there are horror fans. There are horror fans who like to be scared of things. I'm not that person. I'm not a horror fan for a reason. I don't like to watch film and like be scared. I don't want to be scared. But I do like to be like mentally played with. So like psychological horror speaks to me, you know? And I think this film does suspense very well. I think pieces of the suspense we can go through. Like I think the camera walks behind the characters. The camera walks behind the characters is really great suspense building in this film. So we can run through them. Like we have Miss Gandy into her classroom. Miss Gandy at the beginning, she's walking into the classroom, and then you see the kids walking past her. This is before she even knows the kids are missing. And like the kids walk past her in the hallway. She pivots towards inside her classroom. She walks inside the classroom. We just see her desk. Then she pivots again towards an empty class. You see no desk in there. And then she pivots again, and it's just Alex there. Perfect suspense building, because you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Even though there's narration going on at the time, it's really great. And then you also have Miss Gandy in the liquor store. There's 2 scenes where Miss Gandy is in the liquor store, right? The first one at the beginning after the parent-teacher conference. I think that one's really luring when she gets a phone call of somebody like threatening her. That was really good, because you're like, oh, what's about to happen to her? Like you're thinking somebody's in the store with her, like, girl, watch your back. I'm gonna get you. You're like, oh, girl, like you need to get home. Like you don't need to work there no more. Like they want, like, but also like you're not really on Justine's side at that time, so you're kind of like, you're a little shady. Like maybe you deserve to be, you know, threatened over the phone. Who knows? We do know at the end she did not deserve that. But the second walk through the liquor stores was when Donna was following her, right? And that was on your first watch of the film, you're thinking that's like a crazy person trying to get at Justine for some random reason, or because they think like she took their kid or something like that. But then as you watch further into the film, you realize that like, Justine is a homewrecker and Donna is like, Donna could have done worse. Like Donna actually could have done worse. She just poured a little vodka on old girl. She didn't really go crazy. She could have popped her upside her head with the bottle if she wanted to, but she didn't do that because, her daddy's a cop. So like she wasn't going to do that, I suppose. But yeah. Then you have Archer walking away from his truck, which is really, really good suspense as well. And then you have Alex walking home from school. I love all the scenes where Alex is walking home from school. We'll get into like Alex later on, but I love every time we're following Alex, like I just was very enthralled with those scenes, right? Other pieces of suspense that were very like key and like very monumental to like the greatness of this film, in my opinion. I think Miss Gandy looking through Alex's window, that was a very suspenseful scene. Newspapers on the wall. I think that's like the first scene where everybody like realized like, oh, this is actually like a suspense thriller film. That was probably like the first jump scare of the film, I believe so. No. The first jump scare of the film is like the door knocking at Miss Gandy's, but then when she goes to this window and like she like looks through the backyard window, which is also crazy, like why are you in these people's backyard? But when she looks through the backyard window and then like you see like both of Alex's parents are sitting there and she like jumps and like she knocks the trash can over, like it's a big jump scare and people are like, ooh, oh my God. People are like, oh my God, cool. Every single time I saw the film, they did that. And I have seen this film 3 times. I saw this film the opening Thursday. I saw this film the Friday after the Thursday, and then I saw this film the Saturday with friends after the Friday. So I saw this film 3 days in a row, and we'll get into like how I felt about that, right? But for the suspense elements, what else was great? I think the doors opening to Black Abyss. A lot of the door opening in this film, you open to like nothing in the doorway, right? And then the film just like sits there and stands there, and you have to wait and see what comes through, or it pushes you through. Great suspense building, because it's not like there's a black figure, there's like a dark figure in the doorway. It's just like pure Black Abyss. You have no conception of like what's actually coming out, what's standing in the doorway, or what you're about to walk into. And I think that was like really great, like mind tricks for the audience, We have the stalled action movement. So just like with the Black Abyss, you have a lot of times where like the camera will set on a character for whatever reason, and like they won't move for a good like 5 seconds. Like it would just be like, and then it'll move, right? So it's like, I thought that was really good. And then you have the transitionary jump scares. There's a lot of transitionary jump scares in here too. And then you have a lot of like ghouling facial features in the film. So we can talk about like Aunt Gladys, which was also like most of the jump scares is like Aunt Gladys' like face. So you have like Aunt Gladys in Justine's nightmares, and you have Aunt Gladys in Archer's nightmares, right? So I thought those like ghoulish faces were cool. Also like zombie Marcus. I think when Marcus is like in his zombie form, that's like really scary. I think there'll be a lot of people who are trying to attempt to be Marcus for Halloween this year, which I think is really, really interesting. Because it's really, really scary. I saw the film 3 times, and like Marcus's face is really scary. So shout out to Benedict Wong and the creative design team and the makeup artists. Alex's parents are very like ghoulish in this film. They look a lot like, if you've seen Scary Movie 3 with Regina Hall, and her name escapes me right now, but Amy, I think her name's Amy. Like, why am I forgetting her name? Hold on. Why am I forgetting? Hello, Amy. This is so like embarrassing. Anna Faris, like Amy. Where am I getting Amy from? Anna Faris. If you've seen Scary Movie 3 with Regina Hall and Anna Faris, the scene where Regina Hall's character, Cindy, is Cindy? Is it Cindy? Okay, like, obviously, like, I don't remember Scary Movie 3. Scary Movie 1 and 2 are the best scary movies, by the way, tangent. But, basically, Regina Hall's character fights the Grudge, and after she fights the Grudge, she looks really crazy in the face, I believe so. And then also like there's somebody else in the film who also looks very crazy in the face after they fight the Grudge. But that's like how Alex's parents looked throughout this film, right? And it was very creepy and scary. They were very like dead face. Also like when they were stabbing themselves with the forks, like that was very, very scary and like ooh, ah! But like they just had very deadpan face. And then also like when they were very ghoulish at the end, they're very like zombie like and very gray and like very yellow teeth and like ugh, nasty, right? Very ghoulish. It was very nice. I like that. And then you have like the deadness in the children's eyes. There's like all the children. Shout out to all the child actors in this film. Y'all did great. All the stunt work and all of like the deadpan faces and all that stuff. I thought that was great. Another thing about like the suspense was Miss Gandy's like house sequence, like the knocking at the door at the beginning when like she like comes from the liquor store. We see like there's a truck following her, but then then like she stops on her sidewalk and then she sees there's some people walking down the sidewalk. She waits to see if the coast is clear. She goes to her door. She goes inside. She locks it. She gets all her stuff together. She gets her little drink, but then somebody bangs on her door. She's like, "What?" Goes back to her own stuff. They bang again. She's like, "Oh my gosh, leave me alone." She gets a pepper spray. She runs outside. There's nobody there. She sees that somebody like put witch on her car. Then she runs back inside, locks her door, X, Y, and Z, right? Loved that sequence. That was very suspenseful, right? Especially at the beginning. And I think like the lighting in that scene was great. It was very, very like orange, very sepia, but like naturally, like not sepia. It's not no filter. Like this is like real lighting, which I loved about it. And then another thing is like James and Alex's house. I thought that whole sequence was very suspenseful, even though I thought it was like a little too comedic at times, but like, James's entire chapter was meant to be like comedic relief. So it made sense. And the child narration, even we never see the child, like the little girl who's doing the narration at the beginning of the film and at the end of the film. So that kind of adds to suspense because you're like, what's this eerie little like child voice that we have to like deal with here at the film, right? It's like, okay, this is random, but eerie. So I guess it works. And then you have the chase scenes. There's a lot of chase scenes in this film. What chase scenes am I talking about? I'm talking about Paul and James. So that was like a regular chase scene, right? Just like your standard police brutality, right? Which, was also like very jarring. Like when Paul like just knocked James out, like that was, oof, oh my gosh, okay. And then you have Justine and Marcus. I think the Justine and Marcus chase scene is probably like the best chase scene of the entire film because it's told from 3 different perspectives. You have Justine's perspective of it, you have Archer's perspective of it, and then you have Marcus's perspective of it, right? And then like it also leads to like Archer chasing Marcus and then he gets hit by the car, right? It's very, very sad, it's very, very dark, it's very, very scary, it's very, very oof. So it's like a really, really good chase scene. It's probably the best chase scene in the whole entire film if I'm remembering correctly. And then you have like the final chase scene of the film, which is all the children chase Aunt Gladys down the street, which is like very gimmicky. It's very gimmicky, it's very like early 2000s like humor. Like it's very like Seth MacFarlane humor. It's very like people who grew up on American Dad and Family Guy humor. Like, oh, all the kids are gonna rip the old person to shreds, and then like it's very funny, right? Because it's like all these 7-year-olds chasing down this like 70-year-old, cool, right? Funny, ha ha ha. I love American Dad. I'm a big American Dad fan, and that's the type of humor that you would see on there. But like it probably would have been done way more humorously by Seth MacFarlane than it was done here, but all in all, it was a great little chase scene. Let's talk into acting performances. Like I think everybody in this film did very well. Like they brought their A game. Nobody felt like they were living in different films. Everybody was on the same point, same mark. Now, who do I think were the standouts of this film? I think Julia Gardner was the standout, as well as Carrie Christopher. Yes. Now, both of them kind of like are like the 2 leads of the film. I think they have the most screen time. I think the character of Justine, Miss Gandy, and the character of Alex have the most screen time because they both have 2 chapters, but I think they both have the 2 most important chapters. They have like the first chapter of the film and the last chapter of the film. But I also just think like the performances and the dialogue from their characters was just way more interesting than anyone else, and also more dire to the story. So you are more lured and you're more intrigued by it. Now I think Carrie Christopher did much better performance than Julia Gardner did here, right? Because Carrie Christopher is a child actor. And for a child actor to have done the scenes and monologues and given off the emoting that he was giving, compared to like Julia Gardner, who we have seen before and we know that she has it, but it's not like the best performance that she's ever done. I think Julia Gardner's performance in Ozark is still better than like her performance in Weapons, but I think Weapons is like probably her second best performance if I believing I've seen all of her performances correct. She's done a lot of Netflix stuff that's not good. So I definitely know that Weapons is at the top of her performance catalog. But Carrie Christopher, a great child actor. I love child actors. We don't have a lot of child actors in like, major film today. The Academy and the film industry do not care about children as much as they used to, at least. I think my top 3 child performances this decade, maybe even this century, but I won't go too crazy because the early 2000s had a lot of great child performances. So this decade, my favorite child performances are Abby Ryder Forston in Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, Isaac Wang in Dee Dee, and Carrie Christopher in Weapons. Stellar performances. If you haven't seen Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and you haven't seen Dee Dee yet, those are 2 coming-of-age films. You should go watch them right now. Pause my video, go watch them, come back to the video. Then you'll understand what I'm talking about, right? Let's do that. Don't do that. Finish my video first. Finish my video first, then go watch those. Then come back to the video, leave a comment about how you feel about those two films, because they're really good films. And then I'm not gonna go into tangent about those films. I could talk about those films all day, but do that, okay? Let's see. The film is also funny. This film is very funny. There's a lot of comedic aspects of this film. What comedic aspects am I talking about? Let's just run through them really quick. Okay, so we have like the teacher-parent conference. Teacher-parent conference, very funny. You have Justine being taunted at home. That was a funny scene in my opinion. You have the bedroom scene where Justine just had sex with Paul and she's waking up. That's very funny. You have Archer screaming, "What the fuck?" After his nightmare. That was very funny to me. That's probably like the part. I feel like Archer had like the most like comedic like scenes. Like he was part of like the most comedic scenes of the film. That "what the fuck" scene is probably like all 3 times I saw the film, people were like bust out laughing, as well as Archer throwing James across the room every time he got up in the 3rd act. That got a lot of laughs out of people as well. You have Aunt Gladys in the woods when James is running through the woods and he sees Aunt Gladys like. Yeah, that was very funny, because it was just like so random. Like what? Like what is this? You have Aunt Gladys telling the FBI agents to come into the house. Come in, come in, come in, come in. And then like she looks at Alex with like a deadpan face after the FBI agents try to talk to him. Very funny stuff. That was very funny. I love that. You have James opening the car doors. That was very funny because it was just like so real. I'm not a person. I don't leave my car doors unlocked. I'm not one of those people. I know there's a lot of people who just like trust society and just leave their car doors unlocked. I don't leave nothing in my car, and I don't leave my car unlocked. So I have fears that people are going to come and like look at my car. That's why I don't leave anything in my car unless I would be back to my car in like an hour or 2. Other than that, my car got nothing that you can see inside of it laying around. Oops, sorry, I almost dropped my phone. Other than that, my car don't got nothing seen inside of it laying around. And it's always locked. But I'm pretty sure a lot of people go around pulling car doors. I know it's like a challenge too. I believe it's like a challenge that people do, so who knows. James watching the zombie Paul come out of the house and drag him in, which was a funny scene because like obviously he doesn't even know that Paul is like, zombie mind controlled, but he just thinks Paul is like already doing like absurd stuff because Paul has like literally assaulted him as a cop. Like he literally has faced police brutality from Paul already. So he's like, oh my gosh, he's coming to do like more crazy shit to me, X, Y, and Z. And then you have the kids chasing Aunt Gladys. That was comedic too. I'll give it to him. The film is very comedic. However, Zach Cregger has stated that he didn't intend for it to be. He has said in like 1, 2, or 3 interviews that he wasn't really thinking about it being as much of a comedy as people find it to be. And I kind of like call it bullshit on that. Like there's too much comedy in this film for him to say that he didn't intend for it to be as comedic as it is. You did, because it's too much comedy here. It's not 1, 2, 3 scenes. It's like 10, 20, 30 scenes of comedy in this film. So like cut the crap, okay? And that kind of brings me to like my points of contention of the film, right? I think what I would say about this film is like it's the best first watch of the year. Why do I say it's the best film first watch of the year and not like the best film of the year? Because I saw this film 3 times, as I just told you. After the first time I saw this film, I'm like, wow, mind blown. This was a great experience. I love this. After I watched the film a second time, I said, hold on now. There's some flaws in here. There's some things that don't really make sense, Mr. Cregger. But the film's executed on such a high level, you kind of overlook it, right? You kind of like, oh, this is like really, really good, but like it's faulty, right? You overlook it. And then the third time I was like, oof. Yeah, I gotta deduct points because it's like you just left some stuff in the air. What things in the air am I talking about? Let's run through those things, right? So the first thing is Aunt Gladys, played by Amy Madigan, right? Who does great as Aunt Gladys. People have been raving about Amy Madigan's performance. People were talking about Amy Madigan should get like an Oscar nomination and like an Oscar for her performance. And like that has fully died down since then. But it's like, people are being unserious. Like, she didn't even get to do a lot in that film. Let's just be honest, okay? But I found the character of Aunt Gladys really, really, really interesting, okay? But we didn't get enough of her. There's a lot of people who have watched this film and said that they kind of didn't like how many chapters are in this film. They felt like there were like some chapters that like really weren't needed here, that kind of like took away from like the momentum of the story. And you know, in my opinion, I feel like there wasn't enough chapters in this film. I feel like we needed one more chapter. We needed a chapter about Aunt Gladys and her story. Why? Because Aunt Gladys, there's so much surrounding Aunt Gladys that needs to be explained, and for the story to like fully feel full, right? I think if right before Archer goes down into the basement and finds the children and runs into Aunt Gladys, if we inserted like a quick 5-minute backstory for Aunt Gladys and like saw her perspective of everything, it would have summed up the whole story perfectly for us. I think in that background, we would have saw the background for her illness. How is she sick? What is she facing? What does she have in her? How does she get that? Whatever. Explain to us what illness she has and the severity of it, right? Explain to us how she came in contact with that tree that she's using. Where did this tree come from? The tree, the MacGuffin of the entire film. How did she get this? Explain that to us. Why did she decide to use the tree against her own family? Is this her family? We don't even get confirmation if Aunt Gladys and Alex are even actually related. Alex doesn't know who Aunt Gladys is, and neither does Alex's father, but Alex's mother knows an Aunt Gladys, but she hasn't seen Aunt Gladys in a while. And so it's like, is this Aunt Gladys? And if it is Aunt Gladys, who in their family has she already baited into staying with and draining their life source from, huh? Like give us a little bit more of that so we can like point to like develop true feelings about Aunt Gladys, because honestly, I don't know the background of Aunt Gladys, so I can't really fully feel bad about Aunt Gladys. Like, I'm sorry, I personally just can't fully like be like Aunt Gladys, like the most horrible person ever. I don't know her background. I don't know if she's purely doing this because like she is just evil, or if like she was led to this. Who knows? The tree though, the tree is a big thing that we needed to have explained. The tree lore, it just fails due to Gladys's chapter not being present here. What things about the tree did we need to know from my perspective? In my opinion, what did we need to know about the tree to allow the story to feel complete? We needed to know where the tree was from. Where is this tree from? Is it from across seas? Is it from America? Where did this tree come from? Is it ancient? Is it was just sprouted up one day and somebody found it? Why does a tree have mystical properties, powers, whatever? Like, is this like something that was enchanted by like a group of people before? Is this just like a natural, herb or plant that has like powers like this? How did people come to find out it had these properties? What is the ritual? What are the boundaries surrounding the ritual for the tree? Like, we don't really get into that because it's very shaky. There's different there's a lot of variance in how like the mind control works. You know, we have like the bell sometimes, and then we have like the potion sometimes, and then you have Alex who could just wrap the hair around and poke a little boom boom boom, and then it's like, okay, but like, Can we flesh that out a little bit more? I know we don't have a lot of time, but like honestly, like we could have added 10 more minutes to flesh that out. I'm sorry, we could have added 10 more minutes to flesh that out, Zach Cregger. That's all I'm saying. What else about the tree? Why were the children so important over adults? I watch a lot of anime. In anime, a lot of like the lore is like that, like children have more pure energy or more vast and sprouting energy than adults do. Why was that not, explained to us in this film, or why was that not pointed at in this film? It kind of was pointed at because she's like, oh my gosh, Alex, your parents aren't enough for me. Get your classmates. But it's also like, okay, like I guess like you could just get kids, but like honestly, like if you're trying to like get life source, you could go somewhere else with adults and get more life source than like you can just still in like a whole class of children. People are gonna look for these children. But moving on, the black goo. What was up the black goo that Marcus was spouting out, that he was like throwing up everywhere and had all over his face? I get that like goo when in reference to black fluid coming from like a demonic human or like coming from like an evil entity is very like, casual or cliche in like the horror realm. I think back to like Jennifer's Body, or I think back to like Evil Dead, or I think back to like The Exorcist. And like, about a lot of like vomiting, a lot of like goo, a lot of like nastiness goes on. And so, it makes sense, like, from a historical level of the genre why it's there, but it doesn't make sense in the story why he's just throwing up goo. Like, okay, I guess. Why Justine and Archer are having nightmares and flashbacks about Aunt Gladys? That didn't make sense to me. It just didn't make sense to me because nobody else did. And then like Justine and Archer are like fully removed from Aunt Gladys. So I'm trying to understand, what is it like if you're connected to the children in some way, then you have nightmares, but like that's not explained at all. It's not even pointed to. And then some people are like, oh, well, James saw Aunt Gladys in the woods too. Was that a dream, or was she actually there? We don't get that explained. What was there a moment in this film that explained to us like why Aunt Gladys was in the woods? Like I don't think that there was a moment in the film that explained to us why Aunt Gladys was in the woods. So like, you get what I'm saying? Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, oh my gosh. Okay. And then like, what do the salt lines mean? Like, we have salt lines randomly in the house, and like she's like, don't touch them. Like, but like, why did these just sprout about? They weren't here before. Like, why did these just get sprouted about? And also like, the salt lines are in that symbol of like the circle with the triangle within it, right? Which is also within the O of the title card of the weapons, right? And so I did some research, and people have said that that is a symbol for like AA meetings, right? Like Alcoholics Anonymous or Addicts Anonymous or whatever. Because the story does have layers of addiction, right? These characters do have addictive behaviors, or addict behaviors, I should say. And so there is like an underlying layer to the story that speaks to like addicts and things like that. But I feel like, could you have like, aided us in like understanding that a little bit more? And I know that sounds like me wanting like to be spoon fed. People always be like, oh my gosh, you like to be spoon fed. You like to be spoon fed the story. But no, just make the messages hit. Like, can we just make the messages hit? But that's just me. That might be me nitpicking. Okay. Oh well. There's some other like randomly like unexplained things as well. Let's just run through them. The children are missing, but Miss Gandy went to class. So like Miss Gandy, like I said, that opening scene where like she's walking into the class, she's going to the classroom, there's nobody in the classroom. If a whole entire classroom of kids, there's 31 kids in this classroom. Let's say there's one kid who survives. So there's 30 parents, maybe 60 parents if you have everybody has 2 parents in this classroom. Those kids got missing at 2:17 a.m. By the time those parents wake up at 5 or 6 a.m. and see their kids aren't in the room, don't you think the parents would have called the school immediately? Because that's like the first, if I was a parent, the first place I would think my kid would have ran off to is school, because like that's their routine, that's their daily routine. I would have thought, oh, the kid like got on the bus early, got on an early bus, or like ran off to school. We don't live in a major city, we live in a small city, and so the kid could potentially have just like ran off to school. That would be the first thing I would say, or call my family, obviously. But I just don't understand how Miss Gandy went to class like at 8:30 and like it's sun out, and like nobody in the school was like, hey girl, they saying like the kid's missing. Didn't make sense to me. Archer, the M16 over Archer's house, doesn't make sense. People keep trying to say that makes complete sense. It doesn't make any sense. People keep trying to say the M16 or whatever, the AR-15 above Archer's house and his nightmare makes sense. It don't make no sense. People are like, oh my gosh, this symbolizes mass shootings and how parents have to, the fallout, the mental fallout of parents when it comes to mass shootings, X, Y, and Z. That doesn't make sense because this film does not care about that story. Like, this film doesn't care about what happens when your kids are killed and taken from you permanently. This is a film about like your kids are missing, and where your kids, when you have video of your kids walking out, it's some supernatural stuff going on. This doesn't have any, this film doesn't care about the lives of people who have dealt with mass shootings. It doesn't. Especially because like these parents get their children back at the end of the day. Right? The only thing I would say that deals with like mass shooting, like innuendos outside of the guns, is like Miss Gandy as a teacher having to deal with her kids missing and like how she is perceived and things like that. Because I do know that there are a lot of teachers who do have students who are taken due to mass shootings, and then you have, I'm pretty sure that these teachers face a lot of scrutiny from their community and say, oh, you didn't protect my kid, you didn't put your body on the line in front of my kid, X, Y, and Z. We already know everything that went on with Sandy Hook and all of that stuff. So that kind of leans towards that messaging, but not really, because it doesn't really care about that, because Miss Gandy's story is not really about that. It's like, what, 5 minutes of Miss Gandy's story? What, Miss Gandy has about, like, what, 30 minutes of the film? So, you see what I'm saying? No. And then you have the nightmares. I already said the nightmares don't really make sense, because, like, there's no connectivity, there's no, like, overarching story with the nightmares. It doesn't make sense. I already said the black goo. That doesn't make sense. The children running through the streets. Children running through the streets. It's 2:17 a.m. This is not a... People keep saying like, oh yeah, nobody saw the kids because they live in a small town. This is not a small town. There's a whole interstate running through this town. If you didn't pay attention, Alex's chapter shows you there's an entire interstate running through this town. This is a small city. This is a small city. Marcus's chapter shows you Marcus running through the entire small city. There's so many aspects to the city that we didn't even get to see in the film. So for people to be like, oh yeah, there's a, like, obviously the kids would have been seen. It was like the middle of the night. No. At 2:00 a.m., I'm young. I'm a young person, and I am up at 2:00 a.m. on an average night. Well, not 2:00, maybe like 1:00, but you get what I'm saying. Like, your average college student is up at 2 a.m. at night, right? Or your average high schooler maybe, or your average adult who don't gotta work, or the average adult who work a day shift, or who work a night shift, or whatever. You know, there's people who are outside at 2:00 a.m., especially like dogs, at least dogs, or like homeless people, or someone would have seen 30 children running across the small city to a random house in a random neighborhood that's not even hidden. This house is in the middle of a neighborhood, basically. It's at the end of a road, but also like at a crossroads intersection. Like, anybody could have seen them. And that also comes back to play when like James is outside screaming. James is being dragged by Paul into the house. He's outside screaming, and like nobody's coming to his rescue. Like, nobody cares in this town. No wonder kids went missing. Nobody in this town care. Like, nobody in this town care about no kids. What is up with that? Like, these people are crazy. Like, if this happened and my kid didn't get kidnapped, like if I was one of the other parents in a different classroom and heard this happened, I would have been like, oh wait, no, we have to move. Like, we have to leave. Like, this is not a good place to raise children. People like these people do not care about these children out here. You got Ring cameras and nobody can find the kids. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, nobody did investigation. The detectives couldn't even do investigation. Like, it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me. Yeah, so that's pretty much everything. And then I think like the ending, the last 20 minutes, like I said, the last 20 minutes of Barbarian left me feeling like slight sour taste in my mouth, because it just like kind of like, it felt like Zach Cregger like let go of everything he was holding on to and pulling together. He just let it go and like just tried to see like where it'll fly off to. And like, that's like how this film felt. It felt like he was just like, okay, I did all of this work, and like the last 20 minutes, I'm just gonna let it go and then like do a narration over everything. And then like, it was very like unsatisfying. It was unsatisfactory for me. I don't think it was cool that like, you know, all the children went back to their parents, but like only a few of them got like their like consciousness back within a year. And I don't think it's cool that Alex, you know, parents never gained their consciousness back or autonomy, and so then Alex has to be adopted, and we don't really see Alex again. We don't see Alex after he's hugging his parents, right? And that's like literally the whole 20 minutes before the movie ends, I believe, like a whole 10 minutes before the movie ends. And he's the main character. We don't understand what happens to Justine. She killed a whole cop. What happens from that? You could say Archer corroborated her story and is like, yeah, he tried to kill us, X, Y, and Z, but like, come on now. We already know that this little police department's a little corrupt, so, you know, there's just a lot of stuff that was left undone, and it kind of left a slight sour taste in my mouth. But overall, I would give this film a 4 out of 5. I would give this film a 4 out of 5. I don't slight anybody who gives this film a 5 out of 5. But anybody who's giving this film less than like a 7 out of 5, like, you're kind of tripping. Like, this film is really good. This film is really good. But I give this film a 4 out of 5 because those 2 watches I did after my first watch really showed me that this film is faulty, right? It's not a perfect film. Zach Cregger is not a perfect filmmaker. I don't think anyone really is. So, you know, but he does have great output, and I would say he is 2 for 2. He is 2 for 2 right now. I am very fond of Barbarian. I know a lot of people do not like Barbarian. I am very fond of Barbarian. And I'm very fond of Weapons too, you know, but you know, can't give it too much praise because it is very faulty, especially when you're putting it next to other people and using the word Oscar in regards to it. No. We can't let those lies fly. We can't let those lies fly. So yeah, it's an 8 out of 10. It's a 4 out of 5. I love that. I love that. I love that for Zach Cregger. I love that for me. Had a good time. Weapons is like a film that like you would watch like on HBO, like, you know, whenever it came on. Weapons is a film that back in like the late 2000s, early 2010s, it would be on HBO every like Friday and Saturday night for like on reruns for like 5 hours. And then like you would watch it while you're like cleaning up, or you watch it while like you have people over, or like you and your family, you're like, oh, Weapons is on, let's watch Weapons. Or like you and your kid will watch it and be like, oh, Weapons is on HBO tonight, I'm gonna watch Weapons. I only can watch Weapons. It's just a good film to watch straight through. Like it never really gets tired. Even though I've seen it 3 times and I said I saw some faulty stuff in it, it doesn't get tired. Like I still will go watch Weapons right now. If somebody asked me today, let's go watch Weapons, I'd be like, let's go watch Weapons. And I think that's a good film to me. Something that you could rewatch. Rewatch value is really important when it comes to the quality of a film. And I watch a lot of films. And a lot of films I don't want to rewatch per se, but there are some films I do want to rewatch. And Weapons is one of them. And I will be rewatching any chance I can. So bravo to everyone involved. Bravo to Zach Cregger. I hope you do get some nominations, some Oscar nominations. I know Warner Brothers is kind of stacked. They got Sinners. They got one battle after another. So who knows if Weapons is going to get its just due this award season, but might not. Either way, it's a great film. So that is my opinion on Weapons. What else is coming down the pipeline for y'all? So obviously, like I told you, I took a gap, you know, I took a month off, you know, to get better, and now I'm back. I plan to give y'all a lot more content. What I want to do is, I do want to cover the Oscar season, right? I do want to cover the Oscar season. I do want to do like a video for Oscar noms when they occur, I think in January. Then I want to do like, you know, my predictions in February. And then in March, we have like the actual Oscar ceremony. So I want to do like, you know, a recap of the Oscars video. But I think like to do that properly, I need to like give y'all insight as to like my entire film experience this entire year. So I do want to do recap videos. I don't know exactly how I want to do recap videos, but I'm going to find out how to do them. I may do like recap videos like, you know, like winter, spring, summer recap videos, or I may just find like groupings of all of the films I watched. I watched a lot of films this year, so I'm gonna have to figure out how I want to do that. Maybe I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out and y'all will see. But you will understand like all the films that I've watched this year and how I feel about them. And then there are some films that I want to give like their own videos, their own just due on the channel. I did see Twinless and I really love Twinless. I do want to give Twinless its entire own video, but I think I need to rewatch Twinless before I do that, because Twinless is like really good. And I think I need to rewatch it for a second time, like to really see some stuff that I could probably miss. I also gonna do like one battle after another, obviously, and then everything else is gonna be Oscar buzzy. That hasn't come out yet. Like Hamnet hasn't come out yet. What else? A lot of other stuff, you know. So we'll see what comes down the pipeline. But that is it for today, y'all. I'm gonna try to keep these videos like to between 30 and 40 minutes. I'm gonna try. I don't know if they're too long. I don't know if they're too short, but you know, it's a learning curve. I did wear a beanie today. I do have the beanie on today. I didn't feel like, you know, making my hair look good. You know, sometimes you have a bad hair day. But I just had to get this video out and get my thoughts out and share it with y'all. So I'm glad I did. Thanks for watching the video. As you know, every other YouTuber would say, like, comment, and subscribe. And then I will see you in the next video. Thanks.